The Crossroads training grounds are watched over by fearless seafarer Skelemius, famed in death as he was famed in life. Within mist-shrouded labyrinthine Erebus lie countless souls of the dead, awaiting judgment that shall never come. The light of the moon is all that now illuminates the surface, where the dead have risen, and Olympus teeters on the brink of doom. The Crossroads hide the plans and movements of the nightmare-bringing witch and her compatriots. But for how long? Within the haunted Crossroads reside shades and spirits of all sorts, some resembling their mortal selves, and others rendered down to purest essences. Far below, down in the deepest reaches of the underworld, awaits the ancient foe of saffron-veiled goddess Melinoe. Within the sopping, blackest pits of Oceanus reside horrors that the greatest mortal or immortal poets could not possibly describe. An ever-present song compels the nightmare-bringing princess ever forward, towards the beauty, deeper into the abyss. The intricately woven spider silk ensconcing the environs of one gloom-filled recess within Erebus rivals in quality even the weavings of the gods themselves. Few entrances into the underworld exist, and one of them is through the Acheron, whose accursed waters bear the weight of all the woes of mortal kind. Nay, few tales are told of Hades, whose reign as grim lord of the dead came to a sudden end when all at once his past caught up with him. But gods do not go quietly, and history repeats. So this tale was only a matter of time. Beneath the outer edge of Erebus extends a hidden region of the underworld, known only to few, and navigable only by fewer still. Deep in the endless woods of Erebus lie secret clearings, undiscoverable but through supernatural means. On the outskirts of the city lies a makeshift dock, from which a vessel may cut through the channel across the land toward the mountain of the gods. When the armies of Kronos marched on Olympus, mighty Poseidon split the very land asunder, and so the gods contend with naval forces now. The majesty of Mount Olympus lies half-buried underneath a heavy coat of snow, which masks the scars and blemishes of a protracted siege. The very mountain groans and rumbles underneath the feet of the princess, its stonework shifting not unlike her father's realm. A seeming endless sprawl grows on the outskirts of the underworld, where forlorn shades attempt to fade away, and doleful spirits prey upon their sorrow. Within the deepest reaches of the earth, where once grim Lord Hades reigned, now twist the edifices of the Titan Kronos, who made this former tomb of his home. Whither goes the princess, so shall I. Splendid was the princess in her fight. Fearless Melinoe continues undeterred, her foes all vanquished to the last. So ancient is the pitch-black stone, it predates time itself. Its surface ever seems to drain what light and color dare linger nearby. The princess brings her many foes to heal. The fire-stepping princess stands alone. Though time cannot be stopped, neither can she. The princess calls into the dark to no avail. A victory, yet time our foe remains. Sing, O muse, hail princess, light of the moon. Such wondrous spectacle. The modestly appointed tent of fierce Princess Melinoe nonetheless is dutifully organized and immaculately clean. Whilst the pale moon's slender fingertips scarcely reach mournful Erebus, the goddess of the hunt can effortlessly navigate those woods. The last wheel of the three fates, those reclusive determiners of all that is to come, is now under the Princess of the Underworld's care. Thus the ever-ready Princess of the Underworld gained the very heights of Mount Olympus to confront an unspeakable horror that awaits. So numerous are the travails of dread Melinoe that one can scarce begin to fathom them, but on some evening fathom them we shall. What then became of sorceress Melinoe, you ask? This I would surely tell you if I could. Alas, that for the moment I cannot. Of all great feats achieved by mortals or by gods, the nightmare-bringing princess would achieve perhaps the greatest of them all. It's just, I cannot tell you of it yet. From Shadow sprang the peerless witch Melinoe, and back to Shadow she returns for now. We shall resume her tale at another time. So incomparable is the tale of the Princess of the Underworld that why, I cannot even find the words, though by the gods, eventually, I shall. The sheer wrath of fire-tempered witch Melinoe is such that to describe how she confronted her remaining prey would be to sorely limit the appeal of this tale. One rightly may imagine that this tale has a very thrilling end, although I am afraid for now that we are out of time. With victory at hand, the oft-feared Princess of the Dead achieved her life's ambition and lived happily thenceforth for all eternity. Or so I choose to think. Surely from there the Princess of the Underworld vanquished hateful Kronos utterly, restoring peace wherever it was lost, and then lived joyfully for all eternity. Thenceforth all of the effort and hard work put in by studious Melinoe converted to a suitable reward, a life of pleasure and of luxury perhaps. For what is life if not completely fair? Surely a pleasant outcome of some sort awaits. Perhaps the princess is invited to a regal ball, and therein meets her heart's desire, all whilst dancing to a catchy tune. Again sets forth the Princess of the Dead. Once more the princess sets upon her task. Thus the relentless princess starts again. She steps into the fetid surface air. A brief respite awaits. Her foes are nowhere to be found. A moment of reprieve, the welcome solitude. The princess stands victorious again. She trained relentlessly for this. The boatman Charon, one-time steward of the dead, now sculls the rivers of the underworld in aid of those who yet resist the Titan Lord. Ahead, the underworld princess shall again confront the one who raised her, and taught to her the means by which she may prevail. The pathway to the docks is sealed shut by a phantasmal force that neither mortal nor immortal strength can budge. A barricade bars passage to the docks beyond the city square, leaving the denizens of the city of Ephyra confined to their ruinous environs. Near all of the near-endless pathways and suffocating Erebus lead to dead ends, and very scarce are those who can navigate them. Not even those with the power to enter the crossroads at will can entirely anticipate which of its 3 hidden paths shall be their exit. The Dark Princess reveals her deepest fears only to a stoic old amphibian, which long ago hopped into her tent and into her heart. Not even the wiles and stratagems of that resourceful sacker of cities, Odysseus, may be sufficient to overcome the Titan of Time. Most of the ancient edifices that once housed the dead awaiting judgment within Erebus have since been taken by the woods or by decay. Ferocious Cerberus yet guards his master dutifully, having discovered him within these depths. 3-headed Cerberus permits none approach, neither him nor his master. The monstrous hound of hell bears countless fangs as if to say, "Back off." Feared watchdog Cerberus regards the princess with his 6 expectant eyes. After ever-scheming Kronos claimed the house of Hades, shades of the dead residing there, all scattered to the ends of the earth. Fleeting is the sense of hope or joy within the crossroads, yet what little may emerge is often concentrated in the small taverna there. The underworld of Hades holds more than the souls of the dead, riches beyond imagination, even the remains of the deathless Titans. The unhappy goddess of comeuppance casts her judging gaze on all within the crossroads, which she safeguards out of duty and of spite. The widely hated, feared embodiment of doom goes wherever the ever-weaving fates decide, and none but they can anticipate his arrival. Some spirits of the dead forever wander aimlessly, whilst others, lacking even so much will, merely linger in a single place. The ever-restless shades of Erebus find little peace there, save for the prickly embrace of the gnarled branches of those writhing woods. Such deep, impenetrable gloom surrounds the underworld princess that not even her infernal eye can easily discern what horrors lie therein. The keen-eyed princess finds a set of tracks, suggesting that her foe trod through this dusty ground not very long before. The underworld plunges deeper than the deepest sea, yet there are such places where the edge of one and the other meet. Where once reverberated the enthralling music of the sirens, sheer silence now remains. Yet for how long shall those immortal songstresses be stilled? That which slithers, seeps, and crawls, all of it thrives within the foul air and crushing climate near the bottom of the sea. As surface vermin flee from sinking vessels, so have underworld vermin sought darker reaches of their realm in the tumult of the times. Even the faintest river current in the underworld bears willingly the boatman of the dead, wheresoever he may please. In black and murky Oceanus past the border of the underworld, the putrid waters are purified, as if to show that there Poseidon holds no sway. The mirror sheen of the standing waters all about reveal to denizens of Oceanus their full selves, to their horror or to their delight. I've no idea to whom you refer, to whom the Princess of the Dead refers, as she continues on her fateful search. As the ill-fated princess feels her life force fade with every breath of surface air, her sole recourse is to return whence she came, the city of Ephyra, which once stood in solemn tribute to the fear-inducing underworld king and queen, now barely stands at all. The barely held-together city is a labyrinth of streets, some barricaded still, yet others not, each horror-filled, night after endless night. In one forgotten recess of the fallen city, a solitary seeker of profane mysteries conducts her undertakings beneath a pale, distant moon. Across the river Acheron, the underworld boatman travels between realms, through hidden borders, unseen as a shadow in the dark. Doomed city at her back, the Princess of the Dead heads toward a dismal pasture, where she senses she is not exactly being watched. And after all of that, the Princess of the Dead and all the gods above the surface and below, they set aside their differences, and lived from there on out contentedly. Thus young and spirited Melenoi found true love, the sport known as the discus throw, and whilst she did not win the championship, she won over our hearts. And so conniving Kronos was never heard from again, and young Melenoi and all her comrades lived happily ever after. Or did they? With the forces of her enemy and ruin at her fiery feet, Princess Melenoi decided to return whence she came, for she could always devastate them more some other night. Only after all of that did normally diligent Melenoi discover she forgot something at home, forgot her keys. So she turned toward the darkness, and she said, "The river Cocytus winds through endless misty passageways, the wailing souls within its languid waters, all denied their eternal rest. A mortal made stone likeness of the grim lord of the dead stands in the center of the city, looking on at the devastation sown as if in stunned silence. Amid the stench of death lies a rejuvenating spring, etched from a block of stone into the likeness of the verdure goddess and the underworld's rightful queen. Within a green-tinged chamber that the shrilly singing sirens made their own, a pathway plunges deep into the unknown outskirts of the underworld. Amid the overgrowth near to the lowest reaches of the underworld lurk the innumerable souls who cling to shreds of love and hope that long since ceased to be. A deep ravine within the fields of mourning spreads forth like a gash across the underworld's heart, and even hateful spirits know to stay away. The underworld's pulsing, winding river Styx cuts through the edges of the sorrow-spreading fields, connecting to the depths of Tartarus below. Beyond awaits the monstrous hound of hell, no longer watchful of the underworld's gates, but now grown desperate to return to his grim master, wherever he resides. Having quelled the fury of the fearsome triple-headed monster Cerberus, the Princess of the Dead stands poised to delve into the pits of Tartarus, where waits her lifelong foe. Even the doleful residents of the Morning Fields would rather languish longer there than plummet deeper into the abyss, where only the most wretched shades reside. Legions loyal to the Titan of Time yet guard the underworld's major passageways, but remain unaware of certain secret methods of descending deep into the realm. From nothingness sprang all creation, light and darkness, and the world itself. Yet all that nothingness remains, carefully tucked away where none can find it, save for those invited in. Within the silence of the infinite abyss lies infinite possibility, the limitless and unseen building blocks of all that has ever been conceived, and all that shall ever be. The ancient and obscure originator of creation yet remains, observing from within such black impenetrable depths the endless toil of the living and the dead. So lifelike was the nightmare tormenting the Princess of the Dead that she was very much surprised to learn that it was all a dream. Merely a dream, from which she shall awaken any moment now. The Dark Princess had always felt a strong connection with the dead, yet never quite knew why. That is until she realized that she was dead herself, and had been all this time. Thus, having satisfied her heart's desire, the princess felt such jubilation that she burst into a mirthful dance, and so infectious was this celebration that her friends as well as foes all soon joined in. The vengeful princess and the hateful Titan fought and fought. That is until the Titan, with the princess at his mercy, took the opportunity to give a speech, during which the princess slew him after all. And ever since that time, the peoples of the surface and the underworld sought to live in peace and harmony, knowing that only together would they make the world a better place. That was the last we ever heard of the princess. Her tale was forgotten, it is true. Yet were it not for her great sacrifices, none of us would be here now, would we? So far beyond the scope of reasoning were the events that happened next, that committing them to words would be such folly as to not be worthy even of attempt. The subsequent events were fraught with ambiguity, the tale's theme as obscure as its setting. Whether the princess truly found that which she sought remains contested to this day. Having shed its coat of torment, the soul-devouring infernal beast beyond the gates of Tartarus reveals that it is not the monster it appeared, but one more infamously vicious still. Placated for the moment, terrifying Cerberus turns his attention from the princess to the gates of Tartarus below. Whether he fought ferociously or merely played, three-headed terror Cerberus does not let on. The bestial, triple-headed guardian of Tartarus regains his senses once again, his coat all matted still with gaping souls. The Hound of Hell, nevertheless, seems satisfied, unmired for the moment. Fearsome Cerberus gives the princess an appreciative look. A flash of recognition passes across the countenances of the monstrous Hound of Hell. Cleansed of his thick miasma coat, the triple-headed Cerberus finally relents. Three frightful yet familiar canine countenances then emerge. Then all three monstrously sharp-fanged heads of Cerberus bend low in shame. The beast-defeating princess returns terrifying Cerberus to his senses and familiar form. The barely breathing Princess of the Dead somehow manages to overcome the beast. Three-headed Cerberus tempers his boundless rage and hides for now his fangs. Relieved at last of an infernal itchy spot, the fire-breathing watchdog looks appeased. Three red and many-fanged maws turn now appreciatively toward the Princess of the Dead. The dreaded Hound of Hell assumes again a shape so sinister as scarce can be described. What constitutes mere playtime for the terrifying Hound of Hell is ended for the while. The grim, resourceful underworld princess somehow soothes the savage beast. After a furious and world-shaking clash, the dreadful Cerberus recovers his true form. Finally, the vengeful princess overcomes again the hellish monster standing in her way. Within the vastly sprawling fields of morning reside countless sorrow-spreading shades, as well as demons that insatiably feast upon their misery. The dead are as innumerable as the sprigs of wheat within the morning fields, but do not make for the most satisfying sustenance for the unspeakable monstrosities therein. Collected works of sailor slaying Scylla and her sirens lie conspicuously scattered here, a parting vengeance on the sensibility of those who dare to take a closer look. After the calculating Titan of Time wrested control of the underworld, he sealed shut the major artery from Tartarus. Yet the Princess of the Dead knows of a hidden passageway within. The vengeful princess once more finds herself within a groaning old official passageway to Tartarus. Perhaps the very place her Titan foe used to escape his eons of imprisonment. The exposed inner workings of the infamously interlocking chambers of the underworld are a mass of gold-toothed wheels, a never-ending cycle turning at the Titan's sole behest. The once feared underworld king resembles now the wretched and the damned that here were shackled in his stead, until the scheming Titan Kronos cut them loose, all bound in chains of hardest adamant. The erstwhile lord and master of the dead now is a prisoner within the realm the fates themselves decreed was his by right. A long-forgotten hidden refuge within Tartarus provides the princess of the dead some small reprieve, much as it did for her own brother in a bygone time. Amid the clamor of the princess's assault on her eternal foe's stronghold, the boatman Charon brazenly cuts through the hostile river waters, with a variety of smuggled wares at hand. The stately house of Hades now is but a fading memory, for in its place a new-formed palace rises, twisted into the visage of the world-conquering Titan of Time. Here in fathomless Tartarus, the god's cruel predecessor Kronos commands his renegade forces, maneuvering against Olympus whilst holding the underworld in his thrall. The tyrannical Titan's stolen fortress beckons, for the moment undefended and exposed, either because his forces have been scattered, or his certainty of victory complete. The gutted grand hall of the former House of Hades eerily lies still. Knowing the immortal Titan shall return, the Dark Princess pursues an object that may be the key to her predicament. Vanquished only for the moment, scheming Kronos cannot be so easily destroyed. Yet in her every fleeting victory against him, fierce Melinoe recovers something she thought lost. And what do you suppose the princess found within that unassuming chamber in her father's former house? Naught but suggestive wall scrolls, or a gaming table long unused. We shall eventually find out. Just as the princess walks defiantly away, something begins to slightly stir behind her. Is it the Titan Kronos? Scythe in hand? Oh gods, Melinoe, watch out! Another victory. And yet, an adversary such as Time has proven a most stubborn one indeed. If I myself were Time, why, I would simply turn back the sundial, assuming that I could, so that this night would never come to pass. Having resolved her family's blood feud, now the princess has scarce anything to do, except to call this one a night, and on the next, give the rekindled blood feud yet another go. Imagine now a tale which has such an epic scope that the conclusion to the whole affair is nowhere to be found. For each great challenge that the heroine surmounts, another slightly different one awaits. Returned now to her long-abandoned home, fearsome Melinoe there finds too many curiosities, a leading cause of death for cats, and she likes cats, so exercises prudence and restraint. What would become of us if time could utterly be stopped, destroyed outright? It is unpleasant, frankly, just to think about. So we had best not dwell upon such things at all. A secret monument to night, etched with her will and testament, looms tall within the training grounds, revealing its nature only to the worthy. The crossroads, that haven hidden twixt the surface and the underworld, conceals those still loyal to Lord Hades, rightful ruler of the dead. It is the dead of night within a haunted, barely moonlit thicket at the underworld's edge. There, a young forsaken princess hunts her prey. The satyrs and the vermin at their call once lurked the upper reaches of the underworld, making profane preparations for the Titan Lord's return. Pure glimmering gold, a metal shunned by the true king of the underworld, not just for its softness, but because it was favored by his Titan father. A stark reminder of a bygone age. Much is to be learned from history, if one but studies the lessons hidden in any purported accounts. A lifelong pursuit, in and of itself. Once there was an administrative chamber in the underworld, where shades kept careful track of each detail, a trade a few such souls as yet pursue. A small spring draws its heat from deep within the earth, its waters so pristine and pure that they can cleanse the body and the soul. Liquid lamentation flows through the river Cocytus, yet even in such hopeless waters, certain creatures learn to live and thrive. The multi-headed monster keeps his fury well in check, beside the rightful underworld king. Fierce hellhound Cerberus has many fangs, but little trust to spare. The resting hound of hell makes plain he wishes not to be disturbed. Three-headed Cerberus eyes every surface of the chamber, all at once. The savage watchdog looks tentatively at the princess of the underworld. Notoriously vicious Cerberus sits vigilantly by his master's side. The triple-headed guardian of hell does not wish to be troubled at this time. Once fearsome witch Melinoe surpasses all the many foes standing between her and the summit of Olympus, a most extraordinary thing occurs. But all those in attendance made a promise not to tell a soul. The summit of Olympus is a hallowed yet precarious locale, and so the underworld princess, unaccustomed to such rarefied terrain, decides to take the last leg of her journey very, very slow. Such unimaginable sights await the surface voyaging princess as she ascends the heights of Mount Olympus that, to our mortal minds and senses, why, they simply cannot be described. From the summit of Olympus, Titan-slaying witch Melinoe regards the world to which the gods lay claim, and she decides this precious world which we all share is perfect, just the way it is. Whereupon the torch-bearing Melinoe ascends the mountain of the gods, she realizes that she left her heart within the crossroads, which she calls her home, and thus decides to go and pick it up. Night-wandering Melinoe by now has traveled very far indeed, accomplishing her goal such as she can. Strangely enough, however, her return trip truly takes no time at all. The underworld's guardian Melinoe belongs not high above the surface, but below. Thus, having taken care of family business for the night, she vanishes before the break of dawn. And so, under the watchful eye of night, unseen Melinoe gains the very top of Mount Olympus, where such revelry occurs that subsequent events this night are rather murky still. A shrouded glade, shorn from the heart of the land, somehow remains suggestive of a time of peace and beauty that has long since fallen deep into the distant past. The monster called Charybdis marked the doom of many unsuspecting ships, and in its ancient terror now despoils the sea-filled rift that has been slashed across the land. The abomination called Charybdis forms within the waters of the sea, a vortex from which not even the sleekest ship can possibly escape. A black ship, darkest of them all, disrupts the endless fleet that hounds Olympus, yet none dare engage with it for long, or with the fearsome captain of its spectral crew. Now, distant shores upon which proudly rests the mountain of the gods have suddenly grown near, and the black flagship is prepared to send the princess there. As the black flagship sails closer to the shore, the princess of the dead knows well that whatsoever strife she has experienced thus far this night is about to get worse. To feel again the stable earth beneath her feet replenishes within the princess of the underworld her nearly limitless resolve as her objective finally draws near. The embodiment of strife has vanished, yet her influence remains, as earth and sea alike remain embroiled in a cataclysmic conflict she is keen to endlessly perpetuate. Behold that ancient isle on which a great enchantress plies her trade, amid such flora and fauna as have come to welcome her as one of their own. The sweet and pungent aromas emanating from the cauldron of the witch enchantress Circe suggest the depth of her ability, whether as a practitioner of ancient arts or as a cook. A lonesome, dusty path from the necropolis exhibits much of the decay within, yet provides comfort of a sort to all the many simple shades nearby, with nowhere left to go. There is an old adage which goes, one would be wise never to strike a sleeping cyclops, and instead carefully walk by. But at times, exceptions must be made. If once this was a pasture in which livestock grazed and roamed, now little evidence of this remains, only the mud and half-burnt vestiges of a more peaceful time. Across a foul-smelling hovel crudely furnished with assorted fixtures of exaggerated proportion, and strewn with remains both fresh and long decayed, comes a waft of sea-borne air. Unfortunate livestock residing with the ravenous Cyclops seem to be unaware of the conditions under which they graze about and wander, not exactly lost, at least not yet. Having passed the test of her ability, the witch Melinoe prepares for the true test of both her training and resolve. But since this also is a test, no more from that is to be shared for now. Born in shadow, the nightmare-bringing princess of the underworld shall return now whence she came. What is life but a series of tests and trials, one of which the shadow-stepping princess has completed, whilst another looms on the horizon. Coming soon, the summit of Olympus looms so close, and yet, try as she might, the surface-scouring princess can climb no closer for the time, although it never hurts to try. So violent is the clash that then ensues upon the summit of Olympus that I cannot even find the words to speak of it, although I mean to find them soon enough. Imagine knowing everything that shall transpire, much like the fierce Titan of foresight can. Amongst the many questionable benefits, you would not need for me to say what happens next. What does the future hold? Only the fates themselves, and perhaps Prometheus, the Titan of foresight, know full well. Unfortunately, all of them are rather indisposed right now. After accomplishing a truly monumental feat, the ever-modest princess of the dead respectfully requests for there to be no boasting or exaggerated tales of her ultimate result. Merely a brief acknowledgement, like this. Again, Princess Melinoe prevails in her climactic confrontation, and again, I shall say nothing of what happens next, for I am under oath to speak no more. Perhaps after this point the three fates suddenly appear and say, "Well done, Melinoe, but we shall now take care of everything," and then they do. How happy of an outcome that would be. Beyond lies the palace of Zeus, stronghold of the gods, in all its awesome glory. But it is undergoing renovations at this time, so imagining those luxurious yet stately halls shall have to do for now. The future is uncertain, but one certainty is this: time marches ever onward, often faster than one might presume, until we find ourselves wherever the fates mean for us to be, which in the Princess of the Dead's case is right here. A passageway through the snow-covered rock leads to the foot of the most sacred mountain of the gods, Olympus, which now looms impossibly into the sky above. What mirth remains upon the war-torn mountain of the gods apparently is concentrated here, where Dionysus, god of wine, plays host to his most favored retinue of revelers. The majestic summit of Mount Olympus would be very much in sight from here, were it not for the very dark and ominous storm wall that now envelops it. The numerous defensive capabilities of terrifying Talos, the most powerful of the Olympian automatons wrought by the hands of great Hephaestus himself, includes the power to quite slowly self-repair. His rage dispelled, and his true form revealed, infernal watchdog Cerberus regards the underworld princess with but the faintest glint of recognition in his 6 terrible eyes. An alcove unafflicted by the toil on the otherwise besieged Olympus heights invites the princess of the underworld to catch what little breath remains to her for now, the gift of music, bestowed to mortals by shining Apollo himself, has the capacity to stir the soul like nothing else, regardless if the soul is of the living or the dead. The battle of Olympus hangs in the balance, as the mountain's mechanical protectors and the Titan's forces continue to collide, shaking the heavens themselves. Not even the intense heat rising from the mountain's central hearth can entirely dispel the chill here in the air, a gathering storm, not wrought by gods, but something else. No trace remains now of the Titan of Foresight, or his eagle companion, save for a single feather left behind, as if to goad the princess on toward greater heights. A lofty mountain is not easily besieged, so the crafty Titan of Time sought winged beasts susceptible to his persuasions and capable of wreaking havoc from the skies. Heights such as these are no place for the boatman of the underworld, and yet his wares are curiously to be found, born here perhaps by allies that remain unseen. Before the land was split, mortals would gather in great competitions for the glory of the gods. But now the gods themselves appear to fight over the few remaining scraps, a prize procured from water, caught with grace. Mere mortals never could achieve such skill, a catch achievable only by gods. Behold another creature from the depths. A sudden flash, and thus the catch is made. Is there a water denizen she cannot catch? Whatever lurks within those waters, there remains. Her prey escapes, however narrowly, else she is not the princess of the sea. That which she sought to capture slips away. It is no secret to which horror I refer. No secret now to its enormity, its boundless anger, or its many, many eyes. Such horrors cannot truly be destroyed, unless the princess can come up with something at a future time. Another night, another massive undulating monster brought to heel. And for the princess of the dead, such victories are to be savored, but only for a bit. After a grueling confrontation with the father of monstrosity, the princess of the dead yet stands, whilst the monstrosity does not. But since the hour now grows late, the sleepy princess figures she ought to retire for the night. This world is filled with monsters large and small, and for the most part they are not unstoppable, as evidenced by our dark princess of the dead, who thus decides to take a little break. It is most natural to wonder, now that our princess of the underworld withstood the terrifying fury of the father of all monsters, what comes next. So please, go right ahead and wonder that. Much is required to subdue the hulking, furious progenitor of all the world's monstrosities. Courage, strength, agility, a lifelong training regimen from a great witch, perhaps even a stroke of fate. This night, at least, the princess has it all. Beyond that besieged precipice, the princess of the dead discovers all the splendors for which Mount Olympus is well known, and she partakes of them, including an express trip back to her more modest home. Upon the mountain of the gods, one's mortal senses surely would be overwhelmed. So if you are unable now to see or hear or smell or touch or taste it, that is surely for the best. If one is of the underworld, having to battle at extraordinarily high altitudes is ill-advised. There must be some more down-to-earth approach. It takes practically all night for the hard-toiling princess of the dead to clamber to the highest point upon Olympus, but as often is the case, her return trip flies by in no time at all. Beyond the fires on the heights of Mount Olympus lies the solitary pathway to the summit, on which stands a fortress stronger than the mightiest of gods and titans both. At first, the storm which now engulfs the summit of Olympus may appear to have been wrought by gods in their defense, but its monstrosity belies a far more sinister nature. The fortress of the gods reels against the incomparable rage of Typhon, father of monsters, giant of storms, who somehow lurks somewhere very nearby. Apocalyptic Typhon, lord and father of monstrosity, has fallen to the gods before, and for that ancient bitter loss, he now exacts a most terrible price. Some scarce deliveries risked by swift Hermes represent what aid the gods can finally provide unto the princess of the dead, now that the summit of Olympus lies before her. One of the serpentine tails of Typhon, lord and father of all monster kind, slashed through floor after floor of the fortress behind which the Olympians take shelter from his storm. The enemies of all-seeing Typhon cannot possibly escape his rancor, for his eyes are everywhere upon him, red with rage, and searching endlessly, piercing the very soul. Finally, the terrifying storm tearing apart the fortress of the gods starts to relent, perhaps because its monstrous source is nowhere to be found. The hopeless threat of Typhon, whom the princess of the underworld sent howling toward the earth from which he sprang in all his rage, subsides, but only for the night. The embodiment of sleep dozes interminably in a private little grove, visited on occasion by the princess of the underworld, whenever she requires time to think and plan. A finely chiseled countenance of the underworld's unseated king instills a sense of quiet contemplation and resolve in whosoever dares to meet those stone, unseeing eyes. The moon oft shines particularly bright in one fair corner of the crossroads, where the princess of the underworld may always clear her thoughts and have a moment's peace. The sonorous voice of the goddess of the hunt fills the clearing like a ray of moonlight, stirring the eternal souls of shades that there reside. Numerous are the responsibilities of Hecate, witch of the crossroads, unseen watcher between realms, and keeper of the key to pathways hidden even to immortal eyes. On black wings does the uncontrollable embodiment of strife go wheresoever she may please, and lately, that is often in the princess of the underworld's way. The faithful animal attendants of the Witch of the Crossroads oft inspire other beasts to seek the shelter and the solace of this refuge between realms. Above, a full moon flares, bestowing all her grace and power from beyond an earthly canopy of trees and soaring precipices which provide a pristine vantage point. The moon this eve is nowhere to be seen, her light but temporarily extinguished, so that soon it may shine bright once more with newfound strength and possibility. The princess of the underworld now holds the key to the once warded gateway leading all the way up to the surface of this world. But how is she to fare in that forbidden realm? A growing pack of ever-faithful animal familiars now stand ready to follow the princess of the dead into the depths, or wheresoever her fateful task shall take her next. A death-like pallor emanates now from the arms of night, or one of them at least, their fate-wrought thirst to separate immortal souls laid bare. Within the silver pool now swim dark apparitions of the arms of night, in forms unlike the princess of the underworld has previously seen. The three gifts of the veil, to be bestowed to one deserving of the title of Night's Champion, beckon the fierce princess of the dead to prove her unequaled prowess to all. So majestic in their poise are the three sculptures of our princess of the dead that they demand the reverence of any soul in their vicinity. The rank and file of the crossroads swell with shades who once were lost, but now have joined in our Princess Melinoe's most righteous cause. At the threshold to the world beyond the crossroads, the altar of ashes thrums with ancient power, boundless as that of the gods and heroes depicted in the myriad arcana. Each of the ancient fate-wrought arms of night is now rejoined under the princess of the underworld's care, all equally prepared to rid the realm of any of its foes. There are such creatures born of nightmare and the sea, which float eternally toward death and decay, and so invariably find themselves exactly here. One of the sleeker, broader, ghostly ships in the armada of the Titan Lord is now bereft of all the plunderers that were its crew. But in their restlessness they may yet rise again. Endless horrors spewed from Typhon are of every shape and size, including relatively sinister and larger ones recently fallen to the princes of the underworld's wrath. The foul brood of storm-bringing Typhon crawl through the growing cracks in the stonework of the Fortress of the Gods, as though to shake the mountain to its very core. The Titan's forces shattered at her feet. After the fury of that battle, calm. Again her foes are utterly destroyed. None can escape the Princess of the Dead. Her victory achieved, she presses on. Shades of the dead her only witnesses. Few traces of her cruel foes remain. She stands alone, unless you count her pet. Another battle fought with skill and grace. Her foes did not so much as touch her in that bout. All is quiet once again, for now. Now only death and the princess remain. The worst of Erebus fallen like leaves. The deadliest of Oceanus gone. The demons of the morning fields dispersed. Even the Titan's strongest satyrs were no match. A captain of the Titan's guard vanquished. That fearsome maw retreats into the depths. That dreaded sailor driven to the depths. One fewer countless dangers on the mountaintop. The greatest of automatons destroyed. Monstrous Typhon's hateful brood repelled. The trap is set as steadily the princess waits. That which is lurking soon is to be caught. Which water-dwelling denizen is she to find? Her eye detects a surface ripple there. Within those waters teems the strangest life. She stops to cast that dreaded lure again. What hides in waters soon is to be found. Something yet stirs within that murky deep. Here it is safe and quiet. A place of momentary comfort. There is no danger here. Life-giving waters just ahead. The soothing waters of a fountain. A fleeting sense of peace. Again this moonlit grove in Erebus. Within these winding woods, a place of rest. Fresh water so deep in the sea. No trace of horrid lurkers of the deep. That ancient fountain chamber once again. Her brother drank these waters many times. A clear spring in the rift of Thessaly. This peaceful little isle in the rift. The hidden spring within Olympus. These purest waters from the mountaintop. Thus she returns to the Aphira Square. Steadily she retraces her steps. Her work here for the night is done. Back to the heart of the necropolis. That well-worn storage case by now contains tokens of gratitude from many gods and more. A perpetual reminder that the Princess of the Dead shall never fight alone. The chambers of the missing underworld prince lie in a perpetual state of utter disarray, marked by the passage of time, but otherwise untouched. For who would dare? The ancient mirror of night, that conduit of dark primordial power from before time took hold, lies forgotten amid the myriad possessions of the captive underworld prince. Few ever have laid eyes on the glorious palace of the king of the Olympians, as only those deemed worthy may enter, or even locate it amongst the mountain peaks. The majestic palace of Zeus stands resolute and strong, for the combined might of the gods has kept that seat of power safe even from such monstrous adversaries as they face. Tranquil music made by masterful Apollo reverberates throughout the palace grounds, piercing the grimness of the circumstances like an arrow of pure light. Ahead lies the well-hidden and protected palace of the king and queen of all the gods, that stronghold from which Olympus has fought back against all too many terrible foes. Having revealed more of her vast experience, the Witch of the Crossroads leaves the Princess of the Dead to contemplate the limits of the knowledge she has gained. Though bolstered by colossal Charybdis, Scylla and those monstrous songstresses from the abyssal sea yet prove unable to complete their deadly act. The fear-invoking greater demons that took hold of Cerberus have scattered into dark recesses, terrified perhaps by the sheer might of our princess. Not even deathless gods are able to entirely withstand the sheer relentless force of time. And yet upon this night, the Princess of the Dead has seemingly achieved exactly that. The noxious, death-strewn field beyond the city of Ephyra now lies still once more, although a sense of rising fear yet lingers with the many restless souls that there reside. A hidden secret of the ancient weapon wielded by the erratic embodiment of strife proved not quite unpredictable enough to take the underworld princess off her guard. It seems that the perceptive titan who defied the king of the Olympians and one of that king's strongest and most fearsome sons are battling as one. On the same side, not even time itself could stop the fierce princess from vanquishing that ancient monster, which so doggedly attacks the mountain of the gods night after endless night. She stands victorious, yet hardly stands at all. A hard-earned victory. Defeat seemed certain for a moment there. A victory paid for with ample blood. A narrow victory, but still, her adversary almost did her in. The notoriously fearsome triple-headed monster Cerberus rests in his favored spot, and now regards the Princess of the Dead with 3 expressions different than before. Thus was Hades, feared ruler of the dead, restored to his rightful throne alongside splendorous Persephone the Queen. The attacks upon Olympus finally ceased, and ever since, the gods governed our world with newfound care. As for the Princess of the Dead, Melinoe, she stayed in steady touch with all her family from the dark comfort of the shadows that had long since been her home, and she and the Silver Sisters kept their secret vigil over all the realms for evermore. Perhaps only the moon herself can see this exceptionally hidden grove bordering Erebus, wherein practitioners of ancient sorcery may hone their craft to the fullest. With such a rousing show abruptly ended all too soon, the shades there in attendance are left to wonder whether to await an encore or a refund. Apocalyptic hellfire for which the triple-headed monster Cerberus is known engulfs this portion of the miserable fields, the fear yet hanging in the air providing fuel. The Princess of the Dead has fought by now not only to the ends of the earth, but to the end of time. Quite the accomplishment for one still in the midst of youth. On such particularly fearsome nights, the Witch of Shadows is believed to haunt this awfully putrescent field, whilst conducting her profane experiments upon the dead. A foul shoreline that should never have existed mars the border of the rift, beyond which stately Mount Olympus looms, stricken this night by strife and fear in turn. These hallowed heights ought to be for gods alone, perhaps their worshippers at best, not for their former allies and their bitterest of foes, who plot against their divine rule. United in bitter fury, the father of the gods and the father of all monsters, nonetheless could neither lay claim to the sacred mountain nor raze it to the earth. Too many hunters failed to tame the massive raging boar of Erymanthus whilst it lived and breathed, and not even death has been able to still its mighty hooves and tusks. After vanquishing the abomination that is Typhon for the umpteenth time, the Princess of the Dead backtracks a bit to revel with the mirthful Dionysus, but retains no memory of that at all. It is said that the father of all monsters possesses countless snaking limbs and peering eyes, so if the Princess of the Dead took out a few this night, perhaps it was of little consequence. Again, the fate-defying princess braves the dangers of the Mountain of the Gods, and stands defiantly upon its tallest peak. But then the moment passes, and she calls it a night. Time itself is every mortal's enemy, and enemy to some immortals too, so let us all be thankful that the Princess of the Dead has really throttled him again. The frightful, fast Princess Melinoe made such short work of her great foe this night that time itself seems to be on her side. But that cannot be possible, can it? Nightmarish Cerberus regains composure and again sets off, perhaps to notify his master that his daughter is nearby. If all of this was but a playful game for the 3-headed Cerberus, then he at least is finally tuck it out. The fire-spewing hound of hell grows momentarily quite calm, having detected finally the princess of the dead. The many tiny demons causing hellish Cerberus to itch and scratch so much no longer bother him. For now, even the hottest flames can be extinguished, though the three-headed guardian of hell could always summon more. The shadow of a skulking killer now is gone, presumably after it drifted from the crumbling Avira streets in search here of a target too important to pass up. The alluring siren song fades finally to nothingness, leaving the princess of the dead to contemplate the pathways plunging deeper toward forbidden regions of the realm. Thus did the three reclusive and feared fates, whose often unpredictable weavings determine all that is to come, even for gods, declare the dawning of another age, an age in which both mortals and immortals shall be free to choose their path, so long as they believe the choice exists. A golden age, during which mortal kind shall not be ruled entirely by divine right, but by itself. Word quickly spreads from the heights of Olympus to the depths of the underworld, foretelling of this perhaps very, very distant future filled with possibility and the unknown. Many rejoice, but others know that gods do not go quietly, and history repeats. For now, we can but use the time we have, both to prepare and, to the best of our ability, to live. Thus did Melinoe, the unseen princess of the underworld, prevent the very possibility that time could turn so cruelly against the gods again. At least one possibility, of which there may be many, many more. For time flows like a river, and its passage and its currents take strange turns. The princess never did see the true house of Hades again, not on this night at least. But it is still entirely a mess from all which the Titan wrought, so she did not miss much. The princess never did return to the palace of Zeus, not on this night at least, and neither did she truly mind, because the air and light up there were not quite to her taste. Once more has the fierce princess of the underworld ensured that time flows freely forth, and in so doing vanquished a foul remnant of her foe. The work itself can be quite rigorous, having to cross to other possibilities out of the singular reality we know. Thus the princess now feels ready for a nap. A figment of the monstrous Typhon is destroyed, yet none perhaps shall know of it, save for the princess of the dead and her grandfather Time, and you, and I, and whosoever else shall hear my tale, I suppose. The only time that we experience is now. We have the princess of the dead to thank for it. Through all her tireless endeavors, such as what transpired on this very night, playtime at last is over for old Cerberus, but he shall have another playtime hence. The ever-burning hound of hell has finally cooled off for the time being. The dreaded watchdog of the gates of hell decides the time has come to take his leave. Ferocious, fully clean, and multi-headed Cerberus descends again into the comfort of his pit. The princess once again somehow withstands the fangs and flames of Cerberus himself. The princess of the dead again confronts her willful brother Zagreus, who has unlearned some of his finer fighting skills whilst trapped in the clutches of the Titan of Time. The sun and moon, two sides forming a whole, a newfound symbol of the union twixt Olympus and the underworld, and a gift to the crossroads from the gods themselves. The house of Hades once again stands tall and stately, with the proper countenance engraved upon its heavy door. But the princess of the dead has a different entryway in mind. The river Styx here once again flows red, as well it had in ages past, pouring still into the underworld's heart, even whilst all through Tartarus the Titan's gold yet glimmers. So many different possibilities exist in which the princess of the dead prevails or fails, and this is but one more. Certainly no two such possibilities are quite alike, nor ever have occurred before, nor ever again shall. The infernal beast that wrought such terror in the morning fields now sits there calmly and expectantly, not for the princess of the underworld, but someone else. Having vacated the crossroads in all haste, the until recently long dormant incarnate of sleep delivered certain articles in show of gratitude, and perhaps more. The stunned and elated onlookers of Elysium gaze upon this seldom-seen princess, having heard only the terrifying rumors of her fury, and paid witness to it all firsthand. The long-absent underworld prince, no stranger to many an ignoble defeat, has suffered yet another utterly humiliating loss, and at the hands of his own sister, no less. The brutal Hound of Hell by now permits the Princess of the Dead to approach. Where goes the Lord and Master of the Dead, the infernal watchdog of the underworld follows. The one-time guardian of the gates of hell restrains his viciousness for the princess. For unknown reasons does this savage beast decide not to devour the princess. Somehow the princess of the underworld has worked her magic on the Hound of Hell. Playtime for the multi-headed Hound of Hell is ended for the eve. Ensuring time flows freely forth apparently requires cleaning up the mired Hound of Hell. For this most brutal and ferocious beast, all that preceded merely was a treat. The fire-breathing guardian of hell has had his fill of brisk activity for the time being. After some thought, ferocious Cerberus decides not to devour the princess. This sure beats guarding underworld gates, the monstrous hound perhaps is thinking at this time. The rightful underworld king and queen were swift to organize this relatively painless task, and shades of the dead still loyal to their cause answered the call. A vision of the House of Hades, overtaken by the Titan of Time. One possibility that could have come to pass, had not the princess just eradicated him. The storm of Typhon, which no longer plagues Olympus, once again engulfs the Princess of the Dead. For there are possibilities in which the father of all monsters lives. Once more, no trace remains of our world's worst monstrosity, and the mere possibility that he could have wreaked further havoc on this mountaintop grows faint. And so the Princess of the Dead remained in the House of Hades with the Titan of Time and the rest, to aid in the recovery of however much was not forever lost. They and the Titan picked up many pieces of the past, and soon the house grew more like how it used to be. But then, a summons from Olympus arrived, and the princess knew her stay had reached its end. There are no second chances in this world. The Titan Kronos once intoned that there is no undoing past mistakes, mere fleeting possibilities, lost to time. For the moment, time stands still, stricken by the enchanted spear Gygaros, and temporarily susceptible to one final step the Princess of the Dead has planned. Few tales are told of Hades, especially whilst he is bound in chains in Tartarus. A prisoner of time, no longer ruler of the underworld. His sole salvation and our own is the fierce Princess of the Dead. She has at last confronted both of her great foes, scheming Kronos, the Titan of Time, and colossal Typhon, the father of all monsters. Confronted, but not vanquished either one. Yet.